But of course all 27 leaders are the same leaders that have forced our 27 nations to be abolished. They are already bought and paid for by the European Union. So we will all be ruled by the European Union from the 1st of January next year.
So if I've got this right, this isn't conspiratorial hogwash. This is actually, everything you're saying, everything you've said since you've been on air, is actually there for us to read if we want to read it.
Yes.
If I went through the Lisbon Treaty and everything that you've read, I would come without doubt, unequivocally, to the same conclusions that you've just come to here.
Well, I'm leaving you with a 2-page summary of the main Lisbon Treaty clauses. It is that simple that you can grasp all you need to know in 2 pages. But you can read all 6 treaties. The EU has passed the laws of a police state in this nation over the last 35 years as we've harmonised our laws with the EU. The latest one, of course, is 42-day detention. In the European Union, they want 6 months detention. So firstly, they took us from 2 days to 7, to 18, to 28, to 42, but they won't stop until we have 6 months detention without trial, because that's what the European has. So all this legislation, tons of it that's gone through Parliament, all of which you can read, has built an unenforced police state, ready for the EU to enforce from the 1st of January this year.
We're going to take a short pause. We're back in a few moments. Thank you to somebody who says, hello, I would like to ask David a question during the debate, please. But then doesn't leave a question. That's quite a conspiracy in itself, isn't it, really? Or was the question erased, Ash?
I can't say anything.
It is fascinating stuff. There's lots more to talk about. We're back with more from David Noakes. If you have a question for David, reference the centralisation of power, the harmonisation of the EU, which, of course, has massive support from some people politically. They ideologically feel that the EU it's great to be all together under one umbrella. It makes perfect sense. Bit of cafe culture over here. We'll come to all of that and a bit more as well with David Noakes, founder of EU Truth, here on talkSPORT after this.
At the meeting of the European Council today, we will listen to and hear what the Taoiseach of Ireland, Brian Cowan, has to say, and we will try to give support to him in the efforts that he is making in the future.
That was Gordon Brown speaking today. We'll listen to what Brian Cowan, who's the Taoiseach of Ireland, has to say. Well, I don't know what they could say, because they voted on the Lisbon Treaty. They said no. That essentially, according to the basic fabric of what the Lisbon Treaty is meant to be about, that supposedly kills it. David Noakes, does it not?
Not at all. The EU made the rule that...
Well, you're saying there's something suspicious about this?
It's all corrupt. The EU made the rule that all 27 nations had to vote. Now they will just change the rule. It's as simple as that. And, of course, it's fabulous for Ireland, because they may now get a 2-year delay. We will all be abolished on the 1st of January. They'll keep going. But as the EU consolidates its power next year, it may become very obvious that it is a dictatorship to everyone in Ireland, and then they may never join. And if they don't, they will end up, Ireland, the wealthiest nation for 1,000 miles in any direction.
Laura in Northern Ireland says, can you ask David where I can obtain a copy of the Lisbon Treaty, please? I'd like to read it. I bet it takes some... I looked at it and I decided, should I carry on reading or eat my own face? It became that boring. Is it designed to do that?
Yes, it is. It's designed to conceal its content and to put you off. So it starts off with flowery phrases.
Yep.
And then all the knife-twisting stuff is so far in that you really don't want to get that far.
Let's go to Amit in Derby. Amit, hello.
Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm as good as gold, thanks. You got a question for David Noakes?
I have indeed. Hello, David.
Hi.
Just a question about common purpose. It's I've done a bit of work into this myself, and heard that there has been since the late 80s I suppose the best way to describe it would be a Trojan horse-funded, EU-funded, taxpayer-funded organisation that have been eating away at England since the late 80s. I was wondering whether you could comment on that at all.
OK, well, it's common purpose that has undermined the NHS with change, one of the 200 Frankfurt School subversion techniques that the EU has been implementing in England since the 1950s.
Hang on, the Frankfurt School subversion technique?
Yes.
That's like a James Bond thing, isn't it? What the heck's one of those?
Well, in 1935, the communist rulers of Soviet Russia were getting concerned that the workers weren't losing their chains and revolting. So what they did is they bought the sociology department from Frankfurt University, renamed it the Frankfurt School, and commissioned them to research and document how to undermine and collapse a nation. And it is those techniques that the European Union has been implementing in Britain since the 1950s, and it is the Common Purpose organisation, of which Julia Middleton is the CEO, which mainly implements these subversion techniques, and they have almost collapsed the NHS, which is probably their most obvious success.
Okay. Are those techniques including sort of NLP, practice of NLP?
I've not noticed that, but they've got about 30,000 graduate trainees, and they are gradually shifting power away from councillors into council executives. In other words, they're removing democracy at the local level.
Right.
Is that why head honchos at councils get paid squillions a quid to do the job?
Yeah, most of them are
more than prime ministers.
That's right. All those people will be common purpose members, yes.
So that will, in terms of our geographic landscape politically, that will all, I'm assuming, divide up to a very different look to the one we have at the moment, in terms of counties and where they sit within the bigger picture.
Yes, all our counties are being abolished, and they're being replaced with 9 EU regions, each with a regional capital which reports directly to Brussels and bypasses Westminster.
Which I'm told, but is this true? That I know it's true because I've looked, but actually if you go online, they're not even hiding this. You can actually find your regional parliament.
Oh yes, yeah, if you look at... I mean, we even have a minister for the regions, of the 9 regions, Nick Rainford, last time I looked, Rainsford. Oh yes, it's very obvious it's happening, and already most of the local bureaucrats are now organised under the 9 regions instead of under the 48 counties.
Okay. Peter in Glasgow says, does all this mean we'll end up joining the euro? Well, I suppose it would, wouldn't it, really?
No.
Isn't that the least of our problems?
No.
So we wouldn't join, we'd still keep the pound? Hooray! So your journey's been a waste of time, David. We won the pound, we kept the pound. William Hague was right all along.
No, you're completely missing the point. Gordon Brown's 5 tests to keep us out the euro weren't Gordon Brown's tests.
This, of course, went back to 95 when he first said, prior to coming into government.
That's right. His 5 tests were indeed to keep us out the euro on the instruction of the European Union. Because for the EU to succeed, Britain has to be utterly destroyed, economically and politically, or we'll stop them for the 3rd time. So that is why we are being kept in sterling. So the EU will sabotage sterling and drive us into poverty. If we were in the euro, that would be much more difficult to do because they'd be harming themselves.
So are we the problem nation then of the European dream?
Yes, Britain and Ireland are the problem nation.
Is that because we're just naturally great people, the Brits and the Irish? Is that what's happened there, or it just happened through our own varied histories that this is how we've ended up in this position of, I don't know, rebellion, I suppose some might say?
We have been one people since 4144 BC, I think it is. The first Celts arrived in Britain in 1754 BC. Anglo-Saxons, Jutes, Normans, Vikings, we're all Celts. We are a huge problem. We are the people who are in the way. That's another subject and a very long one.
Oh, I'm sure it is. So between us, they trash the sterling. So we all then say, oh, the euro, what a great idea. Is that the idea? And then join it.
Oh, no, they don't want us in the euro.
So we're never going to join the euro?
No, they want Britain economically, politically and militarily destroyed.
So we're probably going to be the poor man of Europe, even if we're within Europe?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Well, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? What happened to the harmonisation and we're all equal? I'd rather be a communist than a sick communist.
Yeah, well, the EU is a communist organisation.
Well, on the back of that, yeah. George in Kilwinning, I don't know if you can answer this, he says, what happens with our great royal family?
Well, I don't want to tread on people's toes, but you have to remember that the reason that King Edward VIII was forced to abdicate was not because his wife-to-be was a divorcee.